For this project, we, Sasha, Ted, and Mackenzie, decided we wanted to look at how race and class changed the outcomes of people's interactions with the police as a way to discuss the U.S.'s prison problem. We chose to make an art book that tells the story of two young people committing the same crime, but having vastly different outcomes. This is a story that, in the last few years, has gone from an unspoken but understood reality to one that we are all finally having real dialogues about. This is our contribution to that narrative.
Each page features a background that shows what is happening in that man's life at the time, and a silhouette with words representing that man's inner monologue and how he thinks of himself. Each spread represents a given moment, such that the reader can watch these stories play out in parallel time. Our intention was to show how the same crime can play out in wildly different ways, as well as to highlight how the external circumstances of someone's life can affect that person's internal life. Large parts of the story of the man who gets arrested are informed and inspired by John from Haley House. His story, though in large part also the stories he alluded to of men less fortunate than himself, provided a structure for the narrative. Further inspiration came from conversations with staff at Prisoners' Legal Services of Massachusetts. These conversations, which primarily took place with paralegals there, provided both specific information about the general prison population in Massachusetts and context for how prison affects the interior life of those incarcerated.
The first page is titled, "Can Someone's Life Change in a Day?" And here we set the scene. Two kids at two different parties. The race and socioeconomic status of both kids is left to the subtext. Both kids have the same internal monologues. They think about their friends, about having fun, about their hopes and dreams, and about fitting in with the cool kids. In both scenes, the audience can see images of drugs and solo cups, and both parties are suddenly broken up by the police. But at a closer glance, differences begin to appear in the images. On the left, we can see a body being dragged, handcuffs, and abrasive dialogue. On the right, the opposite is occurring, as our character walks free.
At this point, our characters are leading very different lives, one in prison, the other graduating college. On the left, we can see classic images associated with prison life, such as a shank, bunks, a guard, and a mugshot backdrop. On the right are characters surrounded by positivity as they look forward to their future. The inner monologues are now completely different. Our character in prison considers himself a failure, amongst other negative thoughts. On the right, our character is bursting with confidence and regards themselves in a positive light.
The third scene shows our character on the left as he attempts to re-enter into society after incarceration. The phrases such as "now what" attempt to convey his feelings of helplessness and the lack of place in society despite his efforts to reacclimate. His inner dialogue is consumed with a continued inability to find a way out of his situation. On the right, however, our character is busy getting married, buying a home, and starting his family life. His inner dialogue is overflowing with positivity as he finds his place in the world, highlighted by words such as love and home.
Finally, our characters have reached the final scene. On the left, our character has ended up back in prison, this time in solitary confinement, filled with so much negativity that his thoughts are uncontrollable. On the right, our character leads a life with a stable job and a bright future. On top of his vocational success, he is a father and a husband. At this final scene, it is impossible to imagine that these characters started at the same place at a college party.
Mass incarceration not only affects those around us in Boston, but also America as a whole. It points a finger in the face of our flawed criminal justice system. These narratives are inspired by personal reflection from those who have suffered and have seen others suffer. The narratives, emotions, and imagery provide a personalized view of a trajectory that is all too familiar amongst minority youths. We hope you find these messages deeply powerful, as change happens best by inspiring people through storytelling.